This is Joe Leigh here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by George Groves here in Wickham for Adebayo Akinfenwa's movie premiere. Obviously here, courtesy of Wasserman, but it's good to see you here, George.
Thank you. Yeah, good to see you too, mate.
Okay, there's a lot to talk about in the world of boxing. I want to talk about your appearance on James English, actually, to start off. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of people have seen that 2-hour podcast in depth, as James likes to do a lot. How did you find that?
Yeah, it was great. I like James. I like his stuff. You know, for a while I was like, oh, he's tapped into that sort of that ex gangster slash ex. But if you're a ex fighter or an ex gangster, you're on the James English show. But there's an art to it. Obviously, you know, he asks the right questions at the right time and lets you talk. So that was cool. It was great to sort of be invited. I think. Obviously, now I'm starting my own podcast now, so that was set up through my podcast. Reached out to James English, and he was like, "Yeah, let's get him on," and it's out this week. So yeah, I mean, it's my long, boring story. If you haven't heard it yet, then get onto James English, listen to it, and in the meantime, obviously, listen to my podcast as well.
Yeah, of course. I'll talk about your pod in a sec, actually. But as for the James English one, there's obviously going to be stories in there with the length that it is that people haven't even heard yet.
Maybe, yeah. I'm not sure what I've said and what I haven't. You know, I've repeated the story so many times. But you know, as you get older, you got nothing. There's no secrets from me. Nothing to protect. You'll be careful that your mind chops and changes as time goes on. Sometimes you're a little bit more forgiving. Sometimes you might be in a bit of a bad mood. So you know, but he's going to ask the questions about some of the more obscure parts of everyone's sort of journey and career, and you know, for me right now, you know, I got no animosity. I'm a happy man. I'm trying to be a happy man. I'm trying to preach happiness. So yeah, you know, it's I'll give an honest account about, you know, the goings on and of a long and torrid career for me at times, but a wonderful career as well. It's an exciting career and a happy career. So. Yeah, no, you get on there, you might definitely. Usually, something comes out of something when it's 2 hours long. You'll say something you haven't said before.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I picked up on, you said...
This is what I was waiting for. What have you picked up on?
No, you said George Groves' fight could have been at Twickenham.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would have been cool. So, yeah, Groves, the Froch rematch, I was doing site visits at Twickenham Stadium. I don't live far from Twickenham. I was training in Twickenham. Got like a private gym in their stadium for the rugby players. Really, it was for the women's first team. And... man, them women are strong. You know, them dumbbells go up to like 100 plus kg. You can't even get them off the rack. I don't know who in the women's first team was bench pressing them motherfuckers, but we used to be in there training. So I had a good relationship with the RFU. They used to look after me, and I was like, look, I've got this big fight. It's going to be a stadium fight. Do you want to do it here? They were like, yes, let's do it. I got to be honest, I was concentrating on training, so I never went much further than an actual site visit. And then when Eddie Hearn, who wanted to promote it, has the time, resources and capability of actually doing that, came up with Wembley. I was like, yeah, you can do it, mate. Do it at Wembley.
Okay, that was it, Shield. I was going to say I haven't had time to watch the whole 2 hours. No, I have watched it. I have watched it, not the full 2 hours. But let's skip quickly onto your podcast. How are you finding it?
The podcast is great. I mean, tune in and listen to it. It's available everywhere that you get your podcast. It's George Groves Boxing Club podcast, and it's fun because we get boxing related people from all parts of the boxing world. We'll have you on soon, mate. Talk about what it's like being the opposite side of the camera and trying to get the best out of boxers. I mean, fighters in general, they're open book a lot of the time. They're there to promote themselves because otherwise they don't get fights. So rather than, you know, the idea for me, want to do something a bit different, maybe something that people haven't quite heard yet before, and it'll be interesting. So yeah, sure, we want the current boxers on, even the ex-world champions and the ex-fighters to come on and tell some stories, but we'll have a little bit of a deep dive into a boxing specific type episode. So whether it be, we've had Darren Barker on talking about, did him an injustice really, talking about dealing with defeat, because he only lost once, you know, apart from the last one, but the last one you finished, but he coming back from you know, overcoming adversity. We've got a few banked. We've got Chris Billum-Smith. We've got Dan Aziz. We've had the Azim brothers on talking about what it's like to be a boxing prospect in 2022, as well as having, you know, Mike Costello talking about the chaos of ringside being a commentator. We've had Neil Sibley on talking about boxing contracts because he's one of the top boxing solicitors in the country. We've got a boxing photographer come in, Philip Sharkey. That episode's coming out soon. So we've had Tony Jeffries that came out today. Jeffries talking about, he was our first Olympian on. He won a medal in Beijing. His pro career was cut short through injury, and then he had to reinvent the wheel. And it turns out he's a very clever, entrepreneurial guy. And now he's hitting it off on YouTube. Your world, mate. Your world. He's got over 1 million subscribers. So it's actually a really good podcast for people who are looking to build a brand, because he actually gives some first-hand accounts of what has worked for him, some things that maybe haven't worked for him. But what was fascinating for me is listening to someone who is willing, capable and able to put in that much work into rebuilding himself, and it always comes down to building the brand, which is essentially himself. Now he's a real success, and plenty of avenues for his success. So he's definitely one to watch, and it's a podcast to listen to.
Yeah, he taught me the jab. No, is this one out yet? Okay, so I'll check that one out. Okay, let's get into the juice now. Obviously, within the last hour, Conor Benn has basically given up his British Boxing Board of Control licence, which means obviously he cannot fight in Britain unless it's with a different board. Just straight reaction, what do you think of that?
That's the first I've heard of it. I have no idea what to even make of that. I'd need, to be honest, I would need some time to process it before I said anything. My initial reaction with a lot of this stuff is it's not an emotional reaction. It will be professional, legal, and what that means I'm not sure. Do you know what I mean? So maybe he's been advised that's what he needs to do at this stage or another. But yeah, it's one of them things. He swears, pleads innocence, and if it's just about someone's character, you want to believe him. He's never displayed anything of this sort, and he's never been that person. That said, adverse finding means something. So you have to leave. For me, as a fighter, as an ex-fighter, I would never. We wouldn't even really want to comment on it, because he could be having the worst of times, and then it's like, yeah.
No, I completely agree. What would you have done then? Because I do actually appreciate you haven't had a lot of time to kind of assess what's actually happening. But in this situation, so the hearing was on the day he gave up his license in the morning of the hearing, which obviously he could have got a ban in the hearing. But what would you have done knowing the hearing was that day? Do you think it was the right kind of decision?
I'm assuming he's been advised that's the best thing to do. Let's be honest. Like, he's at that stage where if they're gonna slap him with something, they're gonna make an example of him, rightly or wrongly. But he's so high profile, they're gonna make an example of him. Unfortunately for him, he's just at that point where his profile is sky high, but in terms of the value, it's not necessarily there banked. He's not a pay-per-view star who's been producing for 5-10 years, who they might, there's guaranteed money that's going to be lost. It's business at the end of the day. So, these, people take this seriously. It's if you've had an adverse finding, and it depends on what it is. If it's true, if it's not, how it could have happened. And then, it's a blood sport. It's a dangerous sport. So there's no room for that. There's no forgiveness for cheats. And that's not me saying Conor Benn is a cheat. That's just me saying in general, there's no room for cheats. If you've been caught cheating through doping, through taking a banned substance knowingly to give you an advantage, lifetime ban, 100%, gone, finished, forgotten about. Love it. I love fighters to be stripped of their previous accolades, because that's maybe the only way to make sure this never happens. But there's rules can be bent, so it's never quite as black and white as what right or wrong. guilty or innocent. So I don't know enough about the situation, so I'll never comment properly on this. But yeah, hopefully it gets fixed.
Well, Conor Benn is a cheat, will not be the title. You don't have to worry about that. I want to speak to you about, you just mentioned he wasn't a pay-per-view star yet. I remember having a conversation maybe 8 months ago. If he was to fight Eubank Jr., he would then turn into a pay-per-view star. Now that hasn't happened, do you believe it's still possible in the future with this in mind and obviously all the bad publicity? Do you still think there's room for him to become a pay-per-view star in this country?
I don't know. He's I haven't ever had a close relationship with Conor, but he's always been nice to me before he'd even turned professional. Obviously a fan of his dad's, and then found out, Conor, we've passed advice to each other over the years, and then, so for him to be a true pay-per-view star, he's going to have to be the best welterweights in the world. Don't know if he would ever be able to be capable of that. If he did that, then yes. If he's going to fight and beat Crawford or Spence or the next wave of the top fighters in the world that come through at his weight, then yeah, maybe. But he won't get it off of just boxing. An exhibition type sort of catchweight fight with another big name who would be Eubank Jr. I don't think he would have beat Jr. I think natural size would have played such a big part on the night, so I don't think he would have got that win. And then to have carried to then continue to be a pay-per-view fighter, he'd have to fight the best guys and ultimately beat them. So it would have been tough for him.
Okay. Moving on, I want to talk about Fury Chisora. Just a quick one. Obviously, there's been a lot of stick, whether it's a good fight or not. However, there isn't a lot of people Fury could fight, and obviously Fury Joyce was posed to Frank a couple of times. Why wasn't that made? It would be difficult even in the time. Joe said a couple of weeks later, this would have been something I was down for. What did you actually think of the fight, with obviously all the controversy around it?
I'm not blown away by it, to be honest. This fight has happened time and time again. Chisora's great value for money, but he's in double digits for losses now. That fight's happened twice already, or a bit like a long time ago. I think the first one must have been getting on for 10 years ago, maybe say. But a Joyce fight would have been amazing. I think Joyce beating Parker, that he's a name that that's a fight that tickets people will be desperate to get to. I'm not sure this sells so well.
I think it did 50,000 in the first day.
I'm sure STUBHUB picked up 50,000 the first day. Of course they did. Do you know what I mean? Brilliant. Well done. It's weird. Is it sold out then?
Not yet, but that's the only thing I've heard. 50,000 in one, which obviously you are right.
It's bizarre for 50,000 going the first day and not sell out, and then what is it tripled out? I mean, conventionally, old shows were sold. You sell a shitload in the first week, a shitload in the last week, and it's But if there's a fight worth selling, then if it's a fight worth getting to, then it's usually banged out in the first week. So, I'm not counting the tickets. I'm not going through the numbers. So we'll see. But you got Daniel Dubois on the undercard. Daniel Dubois is the heavyweight champion of the world. So he's heavyweight champion.
Is he?
Well, is he? I don't know. Apparently he is. He's fighting. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. So he might need a couple more fights before people actually catch on and realise. But maybe Fury Dubois is on its way. So that it's a big, huge puncher against a skillful fighter. I don't know. Heavyweight scene, I'm always very overcritical of it because, they're heavyweights.
Fair enough. I've got to admit, George, I blatantly just lied to you. I said we'll be 5 minutes and we're 14 minutes in here, and I have another couple of things. I want to talk about Joshua, whether it's Wilder or White next. He's not fighting this year. Do you think that's the correct decision? For him to just have a bit of time out.
Who's this, Joshua? Yeah, Joshua. Yeah, sure. It might take a little while to put the right fight together. He might need to figure out his best route. It's been a long time since he hasn't been fighting for a world title. Coming back at a lower level for a few fights and then building ain't necessarily the best idea. But
Do you think building back up to a title fight isn't, or do you think straight into a big fight?
I don't know. It's all down to the individual. Joshua's a bit, does he really want to do that? Does he really want to do that? I don't think he is that guy. I can see him training up and then wanting to fight Wilder or wanting to fight Fury. I thought the Fury fight was a bit time tight, but if it wasn't, that was a good fight for him because he'll be the underdog. People won't necessarily expect him to win, but he's straight in for another big world title fight, and it does good numbers in the UK. So it might never be what it could have been, where they had all the belts and Joshua hadn't lost to Usyk, etc., etc. But if I was him, just have a rest. I don't know, when you're ready, go.
Okay, yeah, White's one of the names next. I want to speak to you. Let's think. Yeah, this will be the last thing. This will be the last thing, George. Joshua Wilder, it's one of the most, I'd say the most anticipated fights. It's more exciting than Joshua Fury, I feel like. I think that's fair to say. How would you see that one going and playing out?
Joshua White.
Wilder
White.
Wilder, Joshua, sorry, there's a lot of names.
What?
Joshua, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, 2023. How do you think that would play out?
Right. Okay. They're both big punchers, huge punchers, massive punchers. So, I'm sure it'd be entertaining. I think Wilder, and there's a lot to like about him. Just sometimes he can't pull the trigger. Sometimes he just don't quite get it right. Joshua, I think, made improvements between the first and second Usyk fight, working with a new coach. So he might continue to make them improvements if he's still motivated to do so. So I'll make Joshua the favourite in that fight. I think just because he's naturally a bit bigger, but either one of them two, if they land, then the fight could likely be over. So. It'd be a pick 'em fight. I wouldn't want to risk big money on it.
Right, thank you very much. 5 minutes wrapped up with George Groves. Appreciate your time.
No, lovely. I'm thankful. It's great to talk to you as always, obviously, and great to get the podcast in before we're talking about this heavyweight shit chat.
Well, I'll be on the podcast talking about this side soon. But
let's do it. Thank you.